night in Major League Baseball here tonight. The WNBA is back in action, and let us not forget, got a whole lot of news coming out of the NFL here. Training camp getting ready to get started here this week. Those that had contract issues or do have contract issues certainly making some headlines here as we head into, I guess, kind of the unofficial start of the NFL season here. Training camp is where it all begins. And where we're going to begin, Tom, is, well, one game in the books already an upset here as the Guardians and the Reds were canceled last night. That game was just finished here now with the Guardians pulling up the upset over Burns for Cincinnati. And we talked about and broke this game down yesterday, in fact, and it looks like the Guardians take game one 6-5. Pretty entertaining game for a early afternoon slate. Game two is coming up here, but kind of thought maybe Cincinnati with that inefficient offense, shall we say, can't be trusted, and they weren't trusted here today. Guardians finally get one back here and score 6 runs in doing so. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, a disaster of a game, really, for the Reds. And I'm not going to put it on Chase Burns if you were watching that game. You know, those runs came in the first inning based on an error. So Chase Burns finished with, I think he allowed 5 runs, or I'm not sure if he allowed all 6, but only one of them was earned. So we got, a walk, an error, all of a sudden we got a grand slam by Kyle Manzardo to start the game for the Guardians. And then, frankly, Chase Burns did his job, right? He held things down. He gave up really only the 1 run, and none of them were earned. And then, the Reds score, but it goes over. Chase Burns falls under his strikeout prop, and the Guards, as a dog, they cash that. They have another game coming up in just a little bit. We'll break that down. And as you said, there's a ton of MLB to get to and some NFL news that continues to trickle out as every team has finally gotten to training camp as of today.
Kind of crazy. And we're starting to get the trade. Who wants demanding a trade? What are we going to do? Slowly but surely, more news comes out, and the Tampa Bay Bucks could just be a total hot mess coming up this season here. But still plenty of time between now, of course, and the first game of the season. And when I say plenty of time, I mean, a month. And that's what we're going to have left until football, of course, is back in our lives full time. But we got a trade deadline coming up in Major League Baseball, and don't look now. The Marlins ended their 12-game losing streak, Tom, in maybe the most epic way possible by beating Durham in the 9th inning for 4 runs and a walk-off battle in a game in which we thought Zach Wheeler was going to be the difference. He didn't even come into – he was a mess early on. The Marlins got to him. But, hey, with a win is a win. Now they're on a winning streak, and – they got Sandy on the mound here tonight, but now all of a sudden we're looking at Philadelphia and going, hey, Phillies, do you remember? You still have a chance to win the National League East, or, well, maybe not now. I don't know.
It is completely up in the air, and, good for the Marlins to break their 12-game losing streak yesterday. That was the time for them to do it against the Phillies, who were coming off of Sunday Night Baseball. Yes, Zach Wheeler was on the mound, but we saw them push out to over a $2 favorite right before first pitch, which was way, way too much when it's all things considered. Sandy's on the mound tonight, as you said, for the Marlins, and they're looking to get back on track. And again, the dynamic of the NL wild card puts them just 2 games back. Now, granted, there's a mess of teams in front of them that are all within a game and a half, whatever it might be. And I got to say, this is a vital series for the Marlins, because if you're looking at this grouping of teams, the Nationals are playing a subpar Blue Jays team. They could certainly pick up some wins there. The Padres, who all of a sudden are super hot, they're playing the Rockies, and that could spell a couple of wins for the Padres, and that puts the Marlins in that much tougher of a spot. Again, the Pirates and the Diamondbacks are playing each other, so the grouping of teams in front of them, they're all looking to pick up wins this week. So this is a vital series for the Marlins. Again, I don't love this matchup. I think Nola is terrible. Aaron Nola pitching today for the Phillies going up against Sandy Alcantara. Nola has been absolutely horrible. I'm not looking to back him in any capacity. And wouldn't it be fitting for the Marlins not just to break their losing streak, but rattle off a couple of wins right before the trade deadline and make things really interesting when it comes to the NL wild card?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, there's one team making the trade deadline very interesting because the Tigers are pretty much playing themselves right into a Tariq Skubal trade here as they lost again last night, and we got a trade deadline a week away. The trade rumors with Skubal, of course, the most coveted, if anybody. He's the most coveted player if the Tigers make him available, which it's looking more and more like, why wouldn't you? Lost what now? 3 straight. They got a game against Baltimore again coming up here in about an hour, but it's not looking good for Tariq Skubal to remain a Tiger if that's the direction they go.
It really isn't. And last night, Kyle Bradish, we talked about this game last night, but he gave up 10 hits and 4 runs, and the Tigers still can't come away with the winning. Granted, they had their own pitching issues, but they certainly got some offense on the board. What they did over the weekend, losing 2 games to the Royals, is just unacceptable. And you couple that with a loss last night against the Orioles. Like you said, they're not playing themselves into a spot. They're playing themselves out of a spot. The question becomes, what offers will they get for Skubal, and do any of them meet their wants? Because they have some price in mind. The GM, the president of baseball operations for the Tigers, have some desire that they want, a starting pitcher in return, or a prospect pitcher, X prospect here, Y prospect there. They want to get 3 of a team's top 50 prospects in order to get Skubal. If they don't get that, do they take the best package that they get come next Monday, or do they decide to hold on to Skubal and try to put together a miracle August and September and try and make the playoffs? I think you got to take a package because, as everyone likes to say, we saw this happen with Ohtani, and the Angels did nothing. And you can get multiple high-leverage players back in a prospect deal, and they just may not make that decision.
Well, the one thing we know for sure is that they're not signing him to a long-term deal here.
Nope.
The fact that they even signed Framber in the offseason was kind of head-scratching, but at least it made it seem as if, all right, we got 1 year left here with Skubal. Let's try and push all the chips in the table. And then they started off in maybe the worst 6-22 in the month of May, I think is what they went. Then they had to deal with some injuries. Skubal pitching, in fact, even after the elbow surgery, is kind of crazy to me that he's even back. But now they're 4 games clear of the final wild card spot. And if he goes, Casey Mize goes, does he not? I mean, this could be a complete dumpster fire if they don't start winning some games between now and next week.
It's really that case. Casey Mize is the other name that people have been bringing up, along with Gleyber Torres. If Skubal moves, if Skubal's traded for the Tigers, I don't think that's the only move they make, because you can't just say we have these other assets that other postseason teams want and we just not trade them. If you're going to trade, just go all in and trade the 2, 3, 4 players that you may be making available, because then you get a huge haul back. Right then we're talking about getting 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 prospects back over a course of 4 trades. And then you are set up for a nice couple of years, because, again, the AL Central is always wide open. No team takes control of that division. So if you can get multiple prospects back across 3 or 4 deals, that is honestly a great choice for a franchise. And I think it's the one that needs to be made for the Tigers.
Yeah, it's coming. They keep playing like they have been, and give credit to the Orioles, by the way.
Sure.
Won again last night. They're playing some good baseball, and yeah, they got a pretty good shot too of competing with the Red Sox for that wild card spot. Anything is possible here, I think, over the next week, and it would appear to me, Tom, that there are a few teams got about maybe 6 games left before they decide whether or not it's time to open the floodgates, or maybe they could be buyers. There's a couple of teams we'll talk about as Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid. right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Tom Vecchio, I'm Joe Raineri, and we appreciate you stopping by as we're getting you ready here for a lot of Major League Baseball coming up here tonight. But we also have plenty of NFL news coming in and across the board as camps have opened up. We talked just yesterday here about, and I didn't know Daniel Jones was going to be ready after pulling his Achilles in December of last season, but he's ready to go. He's looking to be cleared as a full participant. But unfortunately, there's some other big names that are not going to be available once camp opens up here, Tom. We just learned, in fact, just a couple of minutes ago, Micah Parsons doesn't look like he's going to be physically able to perform anytime soon. That's a shocker, too, right? Has he ever been healthy outside of maybe his first or second year in Dallas, by the way, Tom? I'm just curious.
I can't remember that. They said he's probably going to miss the first month and a half of the season, which lines up for, the knee injury that he had dating back to last year. So him not being ready to go, I think, if you were betting into the Cowboys or you were betting on the Cowboys in any capacity, or not the Cowboys, the Packers. If you were betting on the Packers, you should have been wary of this situation, knowing that you are not going to be playing with a full deck when you're betting on a division title or whatever it is for the Packers. That's not the only news that we got. We know that now Tank Dell for the Texans is good to go, which is big for the passing game for them, which has been absolutely abysmal. CJ Stroud has not looked good over the past few seasons. The offensive line is terrible when it comes to Houston, but having some explosiveness in the pass game is absolutely huge. We also saw that as of now, the Raiders have named Kirk Cousins starting QB1 for training camp. They're not saying that he's the week one starter for the Raiders. Obviously, there's going to be a competition between him and Mendoza, number one overall pick, but it's at least something. And we looked at that market yesterday just briefly for the Raiders. We knew that Kirk Cousins is an overwhelming favorite. It's just a matter of, can Mendoza do something in training camp to put him alongside Kirk Cousins as a possible option?
Yeah, and a couple other news and notes, too. DeForest Buckner, by the way, of the Colts, looks like he's got an actual chance of being cleared and ready to go within a week, and that would be fantastic because that defense they need him, and they need somebody who can get to the quarterback, but he's another guy that has dealt with all sorts of injury concerns dating back to his time with the 49ers. Also, Jalen Carter, apparently, Eagles locked him up a little bit earlier, huh, Tom? So I guess that's one less headache going into camp here, right? You don't want a guy screaming, pay me, pay me. Well, he got paid, my man. He ain't going anywhere anytime soon, it looks like.
No, one less headache going into camp. Let's just see, that he actually plays a full game to start the season. Unlike last year, if everyone remembers that, he got ejected, one play, 2 plays into the game, but obviously saying that in a joking manner, he's a great player, vital to what the Eagles are doing on their front seven. They need it. They need their defense to be a little bit better than last year. I think the Eagles will have a little bit more offensive efficiency. I'm not super high on the Eagles overall this season, but I think they'll look better than they did last year. I'm not certain they're going to be better, but I think they'll look and feel a little bit more continuity on offense.
4 years, $152 million extension. The problem with this, Tom, is that they just made him the highest paid defensive tackle in NFL history. So that is going to – there are a lot of teams right now with some big boys on the line that are looking at this contract and going, oh, really? And like you said, this is the kind of contract and kind of deal – you're committed to them, Eagles. Congratulations. But it feels like there's a lot of things that could go wrong with making a D tackle the highest paid ever in the history of the game. That's going to eat up a lot of resources there for the Eagles in years to come.
It certainly is. And I'm still going to say that they have a great offensive line, but what they do outside of the offensive line and surrounding Hurts with weapons and shoring up other aspects of their defense, namely a second starting corner that they truly need, which is one of their issues from last season. Those are going to be the things that are going to be impacted down the road.
Jalen Hurts, Devonta Smith, Landon Dickinson, Cam Jurgens. I go down the list. There are going to be a lot of dudes that they're going to have to make some decisions on over the next couple of seasons. But he is your man. Congratulations, as he is going to solidify that defensive front for a while in the NFL. And, you know, I don't know why Kyle Shanahan continues to talk about this accident, and he's continuing to clarify details on it, Tom. Like, if I'm Shanahan, I don't want to talk about this, like, at all moving forward. Like, I'm good. I'm going to be here. I don't know. Now he's rectifying his stories that maybe he was at fault. What are we doing here? There is so much more, I think, to all of these stories that we're not getting.
Yeah, when you are offering up information unwarranted and to clarify things that no one's asking about for clarification, that always like piques my ears. Like, why are you doing that? Now, I understand there was some lag time in terms of when the accident happened in the middle of July, and when we're actually hearing about it. Maybe he just wants to set the record straight, but something feels a little bit off to me about it. Whether or not that's actually true, who knows? Whether or not this actually impacts the 49ers, I think, is the main thing. Does this impact their team performance? Because the 49ers are generally a pretty public team when it comes to betting the NFL, as they have, a historic amount of success with Shanahan making the playoffs, making it deep in the playoffs in the Super Bowl. So people are generally looking to bet on the 49ers. And if there's any resistance in the market and pushback saying if Shanahan's not going to be fully healthy or at the helm for the 49ers, does that impact our outlook on them to win the division, make the playoffs, their win total, et cetera, et cetera? That's what I'm truly interested in. The shenanigans of Shanahan clarifying the story, we got to wait for that to kind of pass, I think.
Shocking. I mean, listen, the accident happened July 14th. But for him to call reporters into his office this morning to set the record straight, very interesting here. And basically, he is saying that I guess there were reports that the 21-year-old driver is a female, that she was the one who crossed over and hit him in traffic. He wanted everyone to know that's not, I crossed over and hit hard. Now, I don't know if there's a deal already made or what's happening here, but for you to call in the reporters to set the record straight, isn't that what you have an attorney for? Very strange situation there, indeed. But welcome back to the NFL. If it isn't the police blotter, it's who's being sued by who. Oh, it's good to have football back, is it not? Game Time Decisions will continue with more here on the Grid. All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network as we're going to get you ready here across the board. Plenty of Major League Baseball coming up here tonight. We told you about some of the headlines breaking in the NFL. It's good to have football back in our lives here, but let's not forget, the NBA never sleeps. Out of breaking news earlier today, Tom, that guess who is back to the Warriors? That's right, Draymond Green. 1 year, $27.7 million deal. This, of course, coming to light because, well, LeBron's like, yeah, I'm not staying in the West and signing with Golden State. So Golden State's like, well, we got, 20-some-odd million laying around here. Why not give it to Draymond and bring him back? Because had LeBron actually signed, I don't know that we see Draymond Green back with any team, quite honestly, had he gone to the Warriors. But I guess if you're the Warriors, I mean, what is he, 36 years old? Yeah, you bring him back for that price point, right?
I think so. It's an interesting story based on some of the reporting that we saw and some of the quotes that we saw from Shams Charania after that report. A clip going around saying that the Warriors are content knowing that they're not going to be in the title conversation in the West or in the title conversation overall in the NBA. And, that is a very weird thing. And I think the Warriors are at a very weird point because we had reports earlier in the season about Steve Kerr, their head coach, potentially retiring. We know that they're all in the back nine of their career. And, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season for the Warriors, despite the fact I still think that they are too publicly bet. I think there's good opportunities to fade them just because they're not a well-rounded team and they're not going to compete in the West.
Well, they're not, but I'll tell you this. I mean, don't forget, he opted out. He could have signed the $28 million option, but he said, you know what? I'm going to decline it, give you guys the opportunity to, try and sign some guys or do something. And that something was, of course, LeBron James. But now that he went to Philadelphia, can I tell you about, they've got some players, but Steph Curry ain't getting any younger. What is he, 38? This is going to be 39. I'll say this about Draymond. He may not be the player he was a decade ago, but he still played in 68 games this year, which I'll give him credit for. He was, availability is the best thing, right? He played in 68 games for the Warriors this year, and they got a pretty big rookie there in Lendenborg who could use some mentoring here, certainly on the defensive side. So I don't hate the signing. A lot of people are just done with him and his antics, but 36 years old at this point, 1 year deal. I don't hate it, man. I really don't. I think they got maybe a little something left in the tank to at least make it interesting, if nothing else, in the West.
I like it from a team perspective, and what he can bring, to the younger players, I think is the most important thing that he should really be looking to impart on them. Whether or not they can actually make a push beyond the play-in, I still have my doubts about, because I think the West is pretty strong. But I think it's a good signing for the Warriors and where they are just in their timeline.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, listen, it's all coming to an end there, but it won't truly be an end until Steph Curry hangs him up. But yeah, I think they're gonna roll with that as long as possible. So you got a little NBA. You've got, of course, NFL, college football as well. Plenty of stories to get you caught up on there. This is a huge quarterback draft class. I'm just going to say that. We'll talk more about it, obviously, as we get closer, but I'm already reading stories about how, Dante Moore in Oregon, he didn't want to go to the Jets, so he opted to come back to Oregon for another year. And then you got this kid Manning. I don't know if you ever heard of him, in Texas. Although the Mannings have a history of doing this, where don't bother picking me, I'm not playing with you kind of thing. Boy, it's going to be very interesting, Tom, this year to see how this plays out, because we know who the bad teams are going to be in the NFL. There are a number of very interesting quarterbacks that are highly touted here for the NFL. Wouldn't it be something if we get another Manning's like, yeah, I don't want to play with the Jets. I don't want to play with this team. But I can see it happening in this day and age as well, can't you?
It certainly can between Manning, Moore, and Lenore Sellers. The top of the QB class potentially in the top 10 of next year's draft is we get 3-4 quarterbacks taken in the top 10 or top 5 even, depending on where these teams fall.
Yeah, and a lot of them will have something to say about where they fall to. It's just beyond me there. All right, we'll start diving into some Major League Baseball here as Game Time Decisions continues on the grid. All right, welcome back in, off and running here on this Tuesday. Game Time Decisions. Joe Raineri alongside Tom Vecchio. We've got plenty of Major League Baseball games on tap here tonight. Let's start diving into some of these coming up in just about an hour from now, Tom. And the first one, of course, is going to be that Philadelphia versus Miami game, because we did, in fact, get a 12-game losing streak. Poof! Gone for Miami yesterday in epic fashion. Who are we kidding? And they send Sandy Alcantara, who, dare I say, could very well be wearing a different uniform, despite what Marlins representatives are saying, next week. However, they're going up against Aaron Nola. And if I had to pick somebody that I trust, I trust Sandy at home more than I trust Aaron Nola. Do I not, Tom, at this point? And you're looking at a minus 130 price for Miami.
I do. I trust, Nola and Sandy to keep things quiet in terms of the runs. I'm kidding. Instead of our producers in the background being a little non-quiet right now.
I don't
know.
No, thanks.
God, who would do that? But I certainly can't trust Nola. When you look back at his recent game log, we're looking at multiple earned runs in every single start, basically. The last time he didn't give up at least 2 earned runs, Joe, was May 4th. May 4th. Oof. Every single start. Now, listen, some of these starts, he's going 5 innings. He only gives up 2 earned runs, whatever it is. But some of these starts, he's going 5 innings, giving 4, 5, 6 earned runs. So when we look at this matchup, at face value, the Phillies offense has been underperforming as of late. Sandy's been super solid. The Marlins offense has been underperforming as of late. Nola's terrible. So it's like when a stoppable force meets a movable object. What are we going to get from this matchup? I honestly think that the Marlins can rattle off two in a row because Nola's terrible.
He is too. And, Contra will be interesting because Philadelphia, let's face it, right? They came out swinging yesterday, but it was kind of late in that game. They kind of got smacked a little early. Wheeler didn't have it. The bullpen, what Wheeler make it through? 3 innings? He kind of got beat up a little bit there in that game. The bullpen had to come in. The bats eventually got going. But it turns out now, who are you using at the back end if you got to bring in, your bullpen again here? It feels like an over to me. The number is 8. It opened 8.5. It's come down a little, but I wouldn't be shocked here. Do I trust Miami to win a 2-1 game? No, I do not.
Really?
I think once these bullpens get involved, I think all hell could break loose.
Yeah, and frankly, if the Marlins aren't getting, they're only getting 1 or 2 runs across Nola, that's an indictment of where they are as a team. They're struggling right now. And listen, if Nola can go out there and he can, handle business and get through 5 innings or 6 innings and only give up 1 run, credit to him when it's all said and done. But you get the 8. You get the potential for a push. I'm with you on the over. I do like that.
Yeah, like that. Another one at 640. Boy, this annoyed me to no end yesterday. Diamondbacks and Pirates game 2. Pirates win it in extra innings, if you can believe that, 3-2. I had to suffer through watching Arizona go 2 for 14 with runners in scoring position in that game last night. But Brendan Pfaadt going for Arizona here tonight, who's made huge strides since he took a little vacation to the minors to work on some mechanics. And he's been good. He's been really good. 5 starts since, June 30th, 2.33 ERA, 14 strikeouts. Not as many strikeouts as you would like to see, but he's also not walking anybody. I kind of feel like against Bubba Chandler, I kind of feel like this is the bounce back spot for Arizona here. You?
I agree with that. And, this is just really as simple as sometimes saying like the law of averages are going to bounce in the Diamondbacks' favor. And when you look at Bubba Chandler, there's a lot of hype, as he was once a top prospect. He can certainly get the strikeouts going, but the walks have generally been an issue for him. Brandon Pfaadt has been on a roller coaster ride this season, to your point. He missed some time. He's sent down. He comes back up. He's been all over the place. But in reality, it's more that the Pirates' offense is just not at a spot that I'm really willing to trust them, even against what I think is an average to slightly below average pitching staff overall with the Diamondbacks if we include their bullpen. And frankly, the Diamondbacks are a good enough team that they won't lose 4 in a row or whatever they are at this point. I think they can come away with this game and you're getting a good price on it.
Yeah, listen, Bubba Chandler's another guy, too, that had a rocky June, seemed to figure some things out in July. We talked yesterday about these two teams, that maybe the offenses, were really going to be the story in this series. And, that just did not work out yesterday. Maybe we get a few more runs here. But both bullpens were lights out last night. And you and I both know both these bullpens, no, absolutely not. Feels like an over could be coming our way once again here tonight in this game here, Tom. It just doesn't feel like 3-2. And I know PNC Park, terrible for hitters, by the way. It suppresses runs in a big, big way. Chance of rain again in this one, but I don't know. Are we getting an over in this one tonight, too? First one to 6 wins.
I think this is a great spot for, as we talked about the other day, a little bit of a zigzag. Pirates in the under yesterday. Maybe we get Diamondbacks in the over tonight. Simple as that sometimes.
Yeah, I agree with you in a big, big way there. A couple of other games coming up. 6:40 starts here. This is interesting. Tampa at home taking on the Rangers here. Cal Quantrill going for Texas. Jax is going for Tampa. It's been Tampa all day long in the marketplace, but the line hasn't really moved a whole heck of a lot. I saw 8.5 this morning. Then I see 8s for a total in this one. Listen, Tampa has been phenomenal at home, but are we $160, $170? Are they Is it that much of a given here with Jax on the mound?
I don't like the price on the Rays money line. I like to back the Rays in an alternate route, and that's going to go to Cal Quantrill hits allowed over 4.5 hits allowed at -140. I don't think Cal Quantrill is a good pitcher. I think it's really just that simple. And he started off the year in the bullpen. He's in the starting rotation now. He comes in overall with 53 hits allowed in 53.1 innings. He's right at this mark. His strikeout rate is 13.9%. It is incredibly low. He's outperforming his career average in terms of average allowed, in terms of average BABIP, and he's also outperforming the league average. The Rays are an offense at home that can get that ball rolling in terms of him having a regression to the mean because he's not good. So I like the Rays to win tonight. I'm not backing them at -178 or whatever that price is. I'll take Cal Quantrill over 4.5 hits allowed at -140. They just do their thing at home, and the Rays, and we're getting a better price on it.
Yeah, and Rays got to keep winning some games here, right? Yankees won again in Chicago last night, got it done. But, Tampa is just, a couple of games ahead of the Yankees here in this spot. And Jax is another one of these examples, Tom, of Tampa. I don't know what they do. They get these guys from the bullpen. They turn them into starters. He has been, a pleasant surprise for a Tampa Bay team that you weren't really sure, what you were going to get from the starting pitching staff here. But he's a legit, number 3, number 4 starter on this team. Maybe even be better on other teams. But this is a pretty good luxury to have here.
It really is. And, Tampa first 5, lay the half a run -128. That's
I don't mind it.
Yeah, listen, we're getting the Rays at a good price to do their thing. I think the Rangers are a solid enough team. They vaulted ahead of the Mariners to take control of the AL West, which is wild at this point. But I still think the Rays are a better team, and backing them in an alternate route at home, -128. Sign me up.
I saw Cal Quantrill, you mentioned hits. I see 2.5 strikeouts. Is that what does he? I don't think he strikes out 3 guys. Do you?
I would say no, but 2.5 is I don't like to mess with numbers that low. If it was 3.5, I would go under 3.5 if you can find it.
He is a contact guy too. Should be an interesting one here. We got plenty more though as Game Time Decisions continues on the grid. All right, welcome back in. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network, and we're getting you ready here as big slate of Major League Baseball games coming your way here tonight. Some 6:40 games coming up, 6:40 Eastern first pitch, and we talked about this at the top of the show here, Tom, where Detroit is doing a great job of playing themselves not only out of contention, but right into a Tariq Skubal trade, which is going to be terrible for either the National League or the American League, depending on where they send him or where they'd be willing to trade him. But they've lost 3 in a row. They're 4 games out. Now they've got Melton going tonight against Kremer. And listen, Melton the numbers look great, but boy, oh boy, does it feel like he's gotten away with murder. A lot of hard contact. A lot of barrels. It feels like there is some regression coming his way, but I don't know that Baltimore is the team that is going to make that happen, although I give them credit. They've been actually pretty good here, Tom, down the stretch, and they're going to need to be that if they're going to overtake, let's say, Boston for one of those final wild card spots.
They really need to, and, to your point, I feel like every time we come on here, we're talking about Troy Melton or some other pitcher that's just due for massive regression. We talked about Melton last week, and yes, he continues to get away with murder, and the walks and the hits, and they're not turning into runs. And again, just to put things into perspective, left on base percentage is an interesting stat or an interesting metric when you're looking at pitchers. You allow runners on base in any capacity, hits, walks, whatever. And then how often are they getting stranded there? Do you constantly pitch yourself out of trouble? And obviously things regress to the league average. He has a 94.1% left on base percentage this year. And this is through 60 innings. This is not some small sample size. 60 innings. To put things in perspective, Chris Sale, who was supposed to pitch today, the Mets-Braves game got postponed because of impending rain. Chris Sale, his left on base percentage is 82 this year. And Chris Sale's like a borderline NL Cy Young candidate. Troy Melton's up over 90%. Like, he's due for that regression. You can't just let runners on base for free and then just poof, you don't give up any runs. But to your point, the Orioles are not the team that are super threatening. So when we look at this matchup, I think Melton is the better pitcher, but it's been smoke and mirrors better compared to Kramer, who's given up, 2 earned runs in 3 straight starts, 6 and 4 in 2 of the other starts. I don't trust the Tigers, but at least they're a competent team compared to the Orioles lineup, which I can't trust.
I agree. I want to say runs could be coming here. I mean, it wasn't a low-scoring game last night. I'm feels like runs are coming here tonight in this one. You're looking at a total. It opened up at 9. I still see 9s, although it's juiced to the over here, maybe even a 9.5. But yeah, I think the bullpens are both a little suspect. They're both a little worked right now. So why not an over here, Tom? And if you like Detroit to bounce back and get one here, their team total up and over may not be bad either. It just depends on which one of these pitchers you're looking to fade here tonight.
I think both teams can get 3 or 4 across, and that puts us live for the win, if you're looking at a 9. And the Tigers and Melton, I wouldn't back the money line. I would think if they win this game, they're going to get 4 or 5 of their own. The Orioles add in, 4, and then we're at 9 right there, 5-4. So give me the over before I took a money line on either side.
Now, if you had to look at the future market right now, and between these two teams, and by the way, the Orioles 3-1 on the year against Detroit, so they've done a pretty good job so far of battling. 50-57 for Detroit, 52-55 for Baltimore. Which one, if you had to bet, would actually make a run at this here? Once we get to August, which one has the better shot at actually making the postseason? Because I certainly trust, if all things being equal, I trust Detroit's that number 1 and 2, Skubal and Mize. I trust them over anything Baltimore's rolling out.
Yeah, it would be Bradish and Shane Baz for Baltimore, which I couldn't possibly trust. Listen, if Detroit can, throw away a 10-game lead last year, hopefully they can make some of that up this year and go on some miracle September run to find their way into the playoffs. And Cleveland falls back, the Twins fall back, and they can find their way into the 3rd wild card spot. The White Sox win the division in that case, but it would be crazy. And I would have to take the Tigers, knowing that you have a true Cy Young candidate as a game one starter. I would have to take him, but it's not with a whole lot of confidence.
It's crazy. I mean, right now, currently, Yankees, Boston, and I believe Cleveland, right, are your 1, 2, and 3 in the wild card there. And again, the Yankees aren't that far behind Tampa for the division lead. And well, look at that. You've got, and I think there's still about 5 games ahead of Boston in the division in that spot. And right outside there, looking in, you've got a game and a half from Minnesota. Don't look now. Houston's only 2 games out, 2.5 for Seattle and Baltimore. So Minnesota, I mean, that's got to come back down to reality, no?
They should. I was very low on Minnesota coming into this season. I thought they were going to be the worst team in the AL Central. They have exceeded my expectations, but they're still not a well-rounded team. They win games because they play so much in the AL Central where, the White Sox have fallen back down to earth after, very hot start to the season. Obviously, the Tigers, the Guards, the Royals are all not good. So when you're playing so many games against teams that just aren't good, you're naturally going to find your way into wins. I'm out on the Twins in any capacity. I was not in on them to start the season. When you have a mediocre roster to begin with, you got to remember they could have Pablo Lopez as one of their starting pitchers.
Yeah,
and he's out for the year. I just have no faith in backing the Twins in any capacity. I do not think they make the playoffs. They're not going to make a run at it. They should be trading Joe Ryan.
I would have thought so, right? But again, the fact that they're just a game and a half out at this point, Tom, is mind-numbing to me how bad we're talking. I mean, we are really talking about as mediocre baseball as you can get here, and one of these teams is going to be in the postseason. Now, the Guardians are only 2 games over 500, but I think they have the better shot there. And then you got the Twins at the Royals here tonight, right? Why are the Twins laying this kind of number, even against the Royals? Lugo on the mound for Kansas City, and I get it. Taj Bradley for Minnesota's been better, but you're asking me to lay $170, $175 with Minnesota, who, by the way, I don't think I think they're just maybe a game over 500 at home. It's not like they have some sort of great home 28-26 at home. What am I missing here, Tom, with this? We'll get to it as soon as Game Time Decisions gets back here. I'm not laying $175 Minnesota. Maybe Tom would. All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network as we wrap up this first hour together. A lot of Major League Baseball, a lot of headlines coming across in the NFLs. We get ready for training camps that are opening up this week. But, Tom, I asked you just before last break there, I said, I don't know what we're buying at minus 170 with Minnesota here tonight. They've gotten the money. The books respect Taj Bradley, and I get it. Last outing, though, 108, 109 pitches against the Guardians. I don't know that there's this big a difference between these teams. And Lugo's auditioning. Who are we kidding? He could very well be on another team in another week. And he's the kind of guy that, would not shot. He just pitched 7 against San Francisco, I think. Only gave up 3 hits. I don't know. It feels like that's a big risk laying this kind of number with Minnesota.
It is. And honestly, to me, this screams Royals or stay away. Like, you don't have to bet every game on the slate, but if you're looking to handicap every game on the slate, we can say objectively that this price at minus 178, minus 180 for the Twins is crazy, considering that they're just barely an above average team. And Bradley's been good, but he's been overperforming. And do we want to lay this kind of price? I would say if you're interested in backing the Twins, I would not lay the minus 178. I would rather just play their run line minus 1.5 at plus 116. Decrease the unit size. Take a shot on their run line. If you're truly interested in backing the Twins, go for the run line. But if you're just looking down from a normal money line side, it would be Royals or stay away, because that price does not indicate the quality of team that you're actually getting. A minus 178 price is what you're getting for what? What's another team that's minus 170 or close to it? The Padres are minus 220 at home against the Rockies.
Right.
That's not that far. Like, we're talking about the Twins here.
I agree. It's a very risky proposition. Dog or pass? I'm with you on that one, Tom, for sure.
The Rays are minus 178. The Rays are minus 178 at home. They're the best team in the AL. They're minus 178. And you're not going to lay the same price with Taj Bradley and the Twins at home? Oh.
Nope. That's not what I would say is the best use of funds here tonight. Listen, they may very well win the game, but something tells me this is going to be a bit of a sweat here at 26-24 at home. 2 notes here. Number one, Kyle Schwarber has been scratched in the lineup here tonight for the Phillies, taking on the Marlins in Game 2. And also it looks like Jake Bauers has been ruled out for the Brewers in that game against the 49ers. We do have one time change, I believe. This game is being pushed back. Shocker, given the fact that of what the weather is right now. But looks like 8:30 now will be the Washington and Toronto game there, Tom. So that was originally going to be a 6:40, 6:45 start. They're going to push that back to 8:30 now. And that's Bieber versus Cavalli. And, boy, that was interesting last night, was it not, with Max Scherzer only giving up 1 run and 2 and what? You know, I knew we were in trouble, Tom, the minute Washington loaded the bases in the first inning and walked away with no runs. I'm like, yep, this is exactly what game is going to be here. But this Toronto offense cannot be trusted under any circumstances here, Tom, no?
No, they can't. And, you know, listen, Shane Bieber was super solid last time out for them. His last home start, he's getting through innings. He's not picking up a whole lot of strikeouts, but he's getting through innings. Cade Cavalli can really pile up the strikeouts. He's been solid for the Nats this year. I don't like this Blue Jays offense. I think Shane Bieber is surprising, and this is another audition spot for Shane Bieber and the Blue Jays to put together back-to-back quality starts, go up against decent opponents, and put himself in a position to be traded. And that's what the Blue Jays should be looking to do. So I like Cade Cavalli. I don't like the Blue Jays offense. I see this as a Nationals bounce back spot. And frankly, I don't mind the Nationals money line tonight. It's a bit heavy for some people, minus 140 thereabout, but I think they bounce back. I think they are very clearly the better team compared to the Blue Jays.
Yeah, and I think the market is undervaluing Bieber here tonight. because he's not nearly a 5 ERA pitcher. You know, this is a guy that came off the IL, right, back in, June? Was working through a lot of stuff. But if you look at his last 3 starts here, Padres, 6 hits, 2 runs, 4 2/3. White Sox only gave up 2 earned. White Sox, he gave up none. He didn't give up any earned runs, only gave up 3 hits. He went 6 innings. Then you mentioned it. He went 7 against Tampa and only gave up 1 earned run. That's vintage Bieber. I think he's getting better. I don't think he's worse. I think he's getting better. I think runs are going to be hard to come by in this game here, Tom. So, but we got more time to talk about it as we got another hour of game time decisions here on the grid. Welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the Sports Grid Network. A very happy Tuesday to you. Joe Raineri alongside Tom Vecchio as we are getting ready for a big slate of Major League Baseball games coming up. We have one in the books and one postponed. We had a rain out last night in Cincinnati as the Guardians and the Reds had to hold off. They already played game 1 tonight. Great game for the Guardians. Finally got a win 6-5. That was game 1. Game 2 is coming up shortly here. But Mets and Braves also rained out here. So I'm sure we'll be getting another doubleheader in our future here at some point. But we do got a number of Major League Baseball games at the 6:40 time slot here, Tom. And we just heard no Schwarber. Does that change, by the way, what you're thinking with this Phillies lineup here tonight? Maybe the punch if Schwarber's not in?
They've already been struggling on offense. Last night, they did get up some runs, but Sandy's been solid enough that their starting lineup now looks like who they having in instead. So yeah, that bottom 5 of the lineup, or bottom 4 of the lineup, really, Sosa, Crawford, Brian De La Cruz, and Garrett Stubbs, that does not scare me that much. I think Sandy can do enough to limit the offense. Now, I'm not saying that Nola's going to limit the offense because we know he's terrible, and the Marlins offense has been struggling, but I like Sandy to get through the first, 5 innings. I'm going to say somewhat unscathed. So maybe a Phillies team total under in the first 5, but the game could still go over because we know the bullpens had to work yesterday.
So, how much faith do we have in Nola here? I mean,
None.
it feels none at all, right? So, I don't think I think runs are going to be a little hard to come by. Lone Depot Park's not exactly a hitter's paradise, right? But I don't know, a Marlins team total, can they jumped all over Wheeler last night. I thought that was a great approach. They eventually gave it all back, but yeah, maybe that's not a bad approach here either in the first five, or maybe the Marlins team total up and over in the first five.
Absolutely not. I mean, among qualified pitchers, Aaron Nola is 15th in the league, 15th worst in the league, with a 4.31. No, excuse me. In terms of ERA, in terms of qualified pitchers, Aaron Nola is the worst in the league at 5.82. So he's the worst pitcher in the league right now, if you're at least going by ERA. Again, the Marlins, we know they've been struggling. They got the win last night. I think this could be a little turning point for them. They get some runs across the board. Marlins team total, I'm with you on it.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all here. Arizona and Pittsburgh looking to pick up the pieces. 10 innings last night. Pittsburgh walks it off. Bubba Chandler against Brendan Pfaadt. I've been wondering why or where the over money has been. We're starting to see it a little bit here prior to 6:40 first pitch. Don't like the bullpens. They were great last night. Both these lineups more than capable, I think, of scoring some runs. It's stuck at 9, but the juice is starting to rise here, Tom, which makes me feel, can we get a first 1 to 6 wins in this game here tonight?
I think so. We have, mid 70s in terms of temperatures. We got 11, 10 mile per hour wind or so blowing out towards right center field. So we know that PNC is generally a pitcher's park, but given these offenses, given some taxed bullpens and the wind blowing out, I think that's enough to give us at least a neutral hitting environment instead of a plus pitching environment. Hopefully we're just back at neutral in this spot, and that can give us some runs. So I'm with you. And I will also say, we talked about Orioles Tigers. That game's got like 18 mile per hour wind blowing out to right center as well. Yep. So pay attention to the wind, especially this time of year. Rain and wind will always play a part.
Yeah, Comerica there has got the wind blowing out in a big way here. Interesting enough, they did announce, I believe, McGreevy going tonight for the Cardinals, taking on Colin Ray for the Cubs here. And we also know that Busch Stadium, big run suppressor. That's not a good hitter's ballpark. But with these two guys, my goodness, are we getting runs in this one here tonight?
I would like to think so. The quality of pitching certainly isn't there. The offense certainly isn't there, at least from the Cardinals' perspective, a team that I've really just haven't been high on overall. But looking at what we have from Colin Ray and McGreevy, like how are they not at least giving up 2 or 3 runs apiece? If they each give up 2-3 runs, you have the 9, you get the push with the 9, the bullpens come into play. I think we can get to 3 apiece, maybe 4 apiece, and then we're 1 run away from pushing this over to 9, and that's really where we should be seeing. The game's a toss-up to begin with, minus 105, minus 115s-ish on both sides. The offensive players individually, I think, are good in their own right. The teams overall struggle, but I think there's enough pop in these lineups to get some runs against McGreevy especially.
I mean, Colin Ray's last 3 starts versus Detroit gave up 4 earned. Then you had Minnesota 3 earned, Baltimore 3 earned. We're getting some runs here, even for a terrible Cardinals offense over the last month. And boy, they're going to have some decisions to make too, right? We thought they won far too many games, that they were playing way above their head in the first half. And sure enough, Tom, they have come back down to reality. Number 26th in Major League Baseball for the last 2 weeks against right-handed pitching. That means even mediocre to less than mediocre right-hand pitching they have struggled with. But the Cubs, team total over here, feels like not a bad way to go with McGreevy.
I'm seeing 4.5s out there for their team total. I think that's fine. We're dealing with a 9-game total overall. It is plus 100 to the over, so Cubs team total, if you can't get it done against McGreevy, are you really a team that's going to do anything in the postseason? You can make any noise if you can't do it against a pitching staff such as the Cardinals?
I mean, you got to be kidding me. This is a guy that's got a 3.07 ERA And every other number, Tom, tells me that it's at least a run and a half to almost 2 runs worse, which means he's getting away with unbelievable batted ball luck here. And 82 or 83% left on base. So he has been very fortunate. And Arizona last time out was the team that actually got to him finally and made him pay here a little bit. But yeah, this and that bullpen, by the way, of St. Louis is not good. But they should be sellers, should they not, Tom, at the deadline here? I don't know what the Cardinals are thinking they're doing here. It's time to start selling.
They may be, I'm going to put them on the sellers to / standing pat, just because they don't, they have a few pieces, and I don't know if they want to disrupt the young core that they have. The name going around for the Cardinals that everyone's, Ivan Herrera might be in there as a player that could be traded, but they have their kind of core locked up, and I think they just stand pat and don't make too many. No one's going to be trading for any of their pitchers. No team's going to want those pitchers. They would want the bats, but also these are bats that they're not going to be willing to part with. So I see the Cardinals as just a quiet team just because they're not going to make any moves if they don't have to.
Yeah, it's such a well-run organization too over the years, Tom, right? Like they don't have a ton of losing seasons over the last 2 decades. I think this is not an organization that it doesn't understand how to do this. And even when they reset, they tend to overperform anyway, and that's kind of exactly what they're doing here. The Cubs, I think, they need pitching help. They have to be in the market for somebody here. No, Tom?
They have to. I think Reed Detmers is going to be that option for them. They're going to have to give up a lot to get Reed Detmers, but given the fact that they DFA'd Jameson Taillon yesterday, they voluntarily traded for Aaron Savale, who shouldn't have a job in the MLB, and they're just dealing with a host of injuries, which obviously is just a little bit of bad luck. They're going to need pitching help. So whether it be a Reed Detmers, and I continuously say on Pro Baseball Today with Craig, I think Michael Wacha or Seth Lugo, those are the type of pitchers that fit the profile of a Wrigley Field cold weather pitching performance. Ground ball pitchers who can limit the damage and someone that can eat innings. That's who the Cubs need. Wacha or Lugo makes sense for the Cubs.
Yeah, I love that. But the Cubs are definitely going to be active here. And you're right, Jameson Taillon, just see ya. Wouldn't want to be but they don't have a lot of other options behind that. So I definitely think those are some arms we should keep an eye on here. We got plenty more games to go over as Game Time Decisions continues on the grid. All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network. Joe Raineri alongside Tom Vecchio. Some news and notes here that we're learning just coming out here, Tom. Boy, just when you thought the Red Sox might have figured some things out here, they were the very first ones to kind of kick off the trading with the trade deadline just around the corner. Gave up a pretty good prospect, I thought, there in Connolly Early to get another bat, but you're telling me, ouch, maybe that's not going to work out for them this season, huh?
No, Curtis Mead, who they got from the Nats for early. Mead was hit last night in his first plate appearance at the Athletics for the Red Sox. His first plate appearance, he got hit at the Athletics, and it was just announced a couple of minutes ago that he's diagnosed with a broken wrist, which is a big blow to the Red Sox. You go off this winning streak, you're 14, 15 games, you're back in the wild card, you make a move, you think you got all the wheels turning, you're going to bolster your offense, and then this player's out. Now, a broken wrist, what are we talking about? I'm not a doctor, but what are we, 4-6 weeks at a minimum? It puts him there towards the end of September. Can he get some time going in the last 2 games of the regular season to be ready for the postseason? Can they activate him after the season ends for the wild card roster? Whatever it is, the Red Sox are going to have to now make another move to fill the hole that they just fixed by getting me. They need to fix it again.
Unbelievable, right? First at bat, too. I didn't think it looked that bad either when he got hit, but, it doesn't take much, I guess. And just like that, that move they thought they were getting ahead of, yikes, not so much here for Boston. Now, the good news is they're in Sacramento tonight taking on the Athletics. You and I talked about this game yesterday, and, we thought the run line might have some value there with Boston. We thought the pitching matchup favored Boston there. Did not trust the offense of the Athletics. That game stayed woefully under the total in Sacramento. They're back at it here again tonight. Bennett against Cage Jump there for the Athletics. Boston minus 140 range, somewhere in there, but the total is about 10 here tonight. And could it tonight be the night that we get some runs here?
I like runs. I like the Sox tonight. I think Gage Jump has shown some really nice flashes. If you look back just at his game log overall, the first start was what it was, his first MLB start. I'm not looking at that too much, but he went through a pretty solid stretch where he's going multiple games, only giving up 1 or no earned runs. And granted, it wasn't against the highest quality opponents at the time. The Cubs were struggling. At the time, the Astros weren't super hot. Then he goes up against the Rockies, the Angels, and the Giants. And he puts together good starts. Again, not the highest quality opponents. Since then, he's given a 5 earned run versus the Dodgers. It happens. 5 versus the Marlins, 1 versus the White Sox, 3 versus the Nats, and then 6 versus Arizona. I think the wheels are starting to come off for Gage Jump. I specifically like Wilson Contreras for 2+ total bases at minus 115. I think the Red Sox team total is worth a look tonight. And again, just the overall pitching environment that we have with the depleted bullpen for the Athletics could send this game way over.
Yeah, they're terrible. That bullpen is absolutely awful here. But the Red Sox have actually been very good in Bennett's starts here. I mean, Jake Bennett, what a July he's had, Tom, right? Yeah. I mean, he's also been much better on the road than at Fenway. But I believe they are 5-0 now with his last 5 starts. So the bats are going. The Red Sox have a lot of great momentum. This should not be an issue. Meanwhile, the A's, you talked 0-6 in Jump's last 6 starts. He's got nearly an 8 ERA in July, 15 earned runs and 17 innings pitched. How about the team total for Boston? Is that something? Got to be what, 5.5, 6 and a what? It's probably juiced to 6.5 now.
Let's check that because Jake Bennett has been downright awesome for the Sox, and it's one of the plethora of riches that they had that they can trade a player like Connolly Early. But the Red Sox team total right now, 5.5, minus 104 to the over. Listen, if you think this game goes over 10.5 or 10, whatever it is, I think the Red Sox are obviously doing a portion of that. It's not like they're going to lose this game 9-2. I don't see that happening. So if this game goes over, they're correlated in some capacity, Red Sox team total and the game over.
Yeah, I'll tell you this too. Boston, 5th best in Major League Baseball on the road, Tom, which is a little. I cannot believe how terrible they've been at Fenway. But on the road, 30-21 on the road, they have been really good. And the Athletics, this shouldn't shock anybody, but 16-29 at home, whatever they call home these days, Vegas or Sacramento, dead last in Major League Baseball. So talk about no home field advantage whatsoever. This feels like Boston also, I believe, crushing lefties this season too. And jump, man, that feels like a good price for a team total up and over 5.5. Does it not, Tom? Especially when we get to that bullpen.
Yeah, it certainly does. There's nothing not to like about the Red Sox right now. Whether you're looking at team total, game total. They lost the winning streak that they had, but they got right back to it. I think we're going to see much of the same as we saw last night. Now, we didn't get the runs from the Athletics last night, but I think the Red Sox will do their part tonight. So team total first, game total second is the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah. All of a sudden, the American League East, very interesting here. Yankees on the tails of Tampa, Boston on the tails of the Yankees, Toronto, both nowhere to be found. Although they're not terrible, but again, there's levels to this right now. And Boston's schedule is going to be interesting here over the next couple of weeks. And they already tried. They were buyers at some point. Unfortunately, the guy that they bought just broke his wrist in his first at-bat. So, but that pitching staff of Boston, could they add a little something here, Tom, you think, now at the break?
That's a good question because Sonny Gray's been awesome. Ranger Suarez, I'm not sure what his timetable is to return, but between them two, Jake Bennett, Peyton Tolley, I think they have enough pitching. Yeah. I think they have enough pitching. And even if it has to be it's going to be Suarez, Gray, and then maybe game 3 would be half Bennett, half Tolley, just given the circumstances.
Yep.
I would say hitting before pitching for Boston, which is not something I can remember saying as, in any recent years.
Crazy. And again, the lack of home field advantage at Fenway is, this is such a unique year for them, being so good on the road and so terrible at Fenway here. But they're going to have to catch the Yankees, and the Yankees have the White Sox again tonight with Garrett Cole on the mound. We'll talk about that game coming up as Game Time Decisions continues on the grid. Welcome back. Game Time Decisions here on the SportsGrid Network as we're getting ready for some Major League Baseball here tonight. Some good games coming up here, and one of them, Tom, the Yankees won again last night. I can't even, half these guys in this lineup is hilarious. Sanchez is the catcher, and he comes out in a big way last night with a big 3-run home run. But listen, even the backups, right, without the big guns available, Yankees are still winning games. They're winning series. Big win last night. Even when Max Fried, there's going to be some bumps in the road coming back after being on the IL for as long as he was. But the bullpen locked it down, gave the bats an opportunity to win. They did. And now they got Garrett Cole on the mound, who to me, Tom, is looking more and more like Garrett Cole every turn out there. So I think Anthony Kazan, you and I laugh because we're talking about all these pitchers where we're going, these guys, at some point, somebody has got to get McGreevy. Anthony K to me is another one of these guys, Tom. I have no idea how long he's been getting away with it. He is not a very good starting pitcher, but yet he's managed to win a whole lot more games than anybody thought he was going to.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it in. You look at it, just the surface level stats, you see a 4.21 ERA, and, it's not great, but it's not the end all and be all, but still his xERA and his xFIP are at 5.33 and 4.91. So 4.21 is not good to begin with, but his xERA is at 5.33. So he's bad,
Crazy.
But he's still not as bad as his xERA indicates him, which is a full run worse. He's not a big strikeout pitcher. It's at 18%. He has a 9% walk rate, which is terrible, and he allows 1.28 home runs per 9. So he's bad, but he actually could be worse than he actually is. It's not like the inverse. We're like, oh, he's actually bad now. He's actually a lot better than we said. No, he's actually bad, and he could be worse than he is. Granted, the Yankees lineup isn't as powerful as it could be, but they're still getting runs across, and I think this is a spot to back runs before I back the money line. I'm not sold on the Yankees rattling off so many wins in a row or in such a short time, but I like runs in this game more than I like a money line on either side.
Yeah, Yankees middle of the road last couple of weeks against lefties, but the White Sox, they have not hit right-handed pitching well at all, Tom. I think 20th over the last couple of weeks here. Hit or miss. I mean, runs have been a bit of a problem here. The only fear that I have is that the Yankees had to use a lot of bullpen last night because Fried couldn't give them more than 3. So they had a lot of bullpen innings last night. I think Dominguez also was used last night there for the White Sox. So, Bednar was used. Could we very much be looking at maybe some runs here across the board?
I think so. And this is a spot where, if Cole locks things down a little bit to start and you're looking to bet this in game, this 7 or this 8 number could very quickly drop to 6.5. If the Yankees are leading 1-0 after 3 or 4, this number is going to come down pretty quickly. A 6.5 in game would be a spot to look because the bullpens, and we got to remember, the Yankees did not have a day off after Sunday Night Baseball. They had to play, against the Phillies, that game doubleheader, and then they played Sunday night to go right into this series. So they have not had any rest. A depleted bullpen and an over 6.5, that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this too: double-digit winds blowing out to right field, 11 miles an hour at right field. So if we got some wind blowing out, boy, left-handed power bats going to come into play here, but. I like Garrett Cole's chances of at least limiting the damage early here. And if I had to take a flyer, I don't know, Yankees maybe in the first 5. I think I have a better shot than anything else. But the bullpen's, again, a little bit worked here. And just like that, you've got the Guardians won game 1 of the doubleheader today. They got a second game coming up here. Also, wind blowing out big time. At Citizens Bank, at the Great American Small Park. So that also maybe another over. And you're talking about 2 teams, Tom, that I don't trust to score enough runs anywhere. And I don't care who's pitching. Gavin Williams against Ferguson coming out here in this game number 2. Over? What are you thinking?
The only thing I'd be looking at backing over right now would be Gavin Williams' strikeout prop. 7.5 is a high number, and it's juiced to the over. But we're talking about a pitcher who has 11 strikeouts in 3 straight starts. If the Guardians want any hope of winning back-to-back games against a Reds team that's absolutely desperate, Gavin Williams needs to be out there. And given the fact that it's a doubleheader, I think they'll give him a little bit of a longer leash. Even if he gives up 3-4 runs, they just need him out there to eat some innings.
Usually like going the other way with these double headers, right? Guardians win game 1, maybe come back with the Reds. We'll dive into those numbers here as Game Time Decisions continues on the grid. All right, welcome back in Game Time Decisions here on this Tuesday in the Sports Grid Network. Thanks so much for stopping by. As we got a whole lot of Major League Baseball coming up in just about the next 10 or 15 minutes here. We do have a game that has already been postponed, that being the Mets at the Braves. I'm guessing that doubleheader will take center stage likely tomorrow there, Tom. We did have a doubleheader today. Reds had that game, should have had that game anyway, but unfortunately they lost 6-5 in game 1. We were just talking about game 2 coming up, and again, Williams is going for the Guardians. They opened up, the look ahead was like 123, minus 123. Now, this is a road team, mind you, at the Great American Ballpark, and we got about a 12 to 15 cent move here because it's an opener for the Reds, and then it's going to be really hodgepodge. They're just anybody available at this point feels like is going to pitch in this game. Man, I don't often like expecting, no matter how big the pitching advantage may be there from the starting perspective, I do not like having, usually I'd be rooting for the split here. And at this price point, I feel like the home dog might be a pretty solid play, no?
Yeah. Yeah, one of my, I don't want to say strategies or beliefs or mantras is, especially late in season, especially when you have some type of either division rivals or some type of rivalry. This is the Battle of Ohio, if you want to call it that. I think Team A wins, game 1. I'll just be on, Team B to win game 2. Sometimes it's as simple as that. And the fact that you're getting plus money on the home team makes it that much better. And this is a situation where Gavin Williams could pitch a great game because he's been downright awesome as of late, but the Reds still end up winning. So again, I don't love betting on a team knowing that you're going to be getting an opener, a bullpen game, long reliever, whatever you want to call it. We're getting a good manager in Terry Francona on the Reds, and we're getting plus money. I'm okay with that.
I am too here. And you said it. You watched that game earlier. For those that didn't see it, Tom, that 6-5 game that the Reds lost. I mean, it wasn't Chase Burns' fault, correct?
No. I mean, we got errors in the first inning, which lead to runners on base. Then, he gives up a grand slam to Kyle Manzardo. They're all, unearned, and he gives up one more a little bit later in the game. And he kind of locked things down for the most part. The offense did their part, but the errors is really what prolonged that inning and drove his pitch count through the roof.
I'll tell you, I'm looking right now, too. If you want to back the home team, getting a run and a half at minus 130 may not be a bad look either, Tom. I don't hate that with a desperate Reds team at home at the Great American Ballpark here. That game coming up just after the top of the hour. The late games, the late night degenerate special starts at Ches Ravine, I believe, with the Dodgers taking on Seattle here. Robleski taking on Louis Castillo, who, which version of him shows up tonight is my question here. But once again, the Dodgers, they're 220 favorites here. They're overpriced. 9.5 is the total in this game. I mean, what are we thinking here?
Dodgers are so tough to bet. I can't reasonably say that I want to bet the Dodgers in any capacity. And I know a lot of people out there, we haven't touched on the Padres Rockies yet. I assume a lot of people out there are putting the minus 235 for the Dodgers and minus 220-ish for the Padres.
Yep.
And just trying to get it close to even money. They're trying to listen, I don't like backing the Dodgers that type of price. Maybe if it was Yamamoto, I could talk myself into it, first five, something or another. But I just can't back the Dodgers. Their offense hasn't been that consistent. People still bill them as the Dodgers, but they've been a little bit up and down, which people don't really realize. Castillo, I'm not saying he's good in any capacity. And I've been looking to fade Castillo for a while, especially recently, but I can't back the Dodgers at minus 235. It's too much.
I'm looking right now, Tom, because I want to see what the weather is going to be. And it looks like, what do you got? 8-9 mile an hour winds towards right field. And it's temperature, not a lot of humidity, but not a crazy hot night there in LA. So home run props maybe in this one for the Dodgers. What do you think might go yard here?
That's a great question. Let's look at some prices real quick, just because the Ohtani price is always crazy. And what are we looking at? 210 for a home run is insane. Like you can't be looking at 210 for a home run. Nuts. And even Max Muncy is plus 280, which is an insane price. Like these are unbettable at a certain point. And I know people are probably throwing Ohtani with, Yordan Alvarez tonight. Dalton Rushing is even plus 350. That's crazy. I would look further down. Like Andy Pajes is plus 450. You can take a shot there. Mookie's plus 560. And listen, I know his power is sapped over the recent years, but I'd rather take a small, quarter unit, even less than that, fifth of a unit, and put it on Mookie than bet into a plus 210 for home run prop, which is insane.
Anybody in Seattle worth, you got to think Robleski is not exactly, he's an interesting pitcher that he's been very lucky with the home run ball so far this year, Tom. And it feels like if you can get one up here, Cal Raleigh at what, plus 1,200? At least that's what it should be anyway here. But is there a Seattle Mariner that could give us a pretty good return here?
You know who it would be for me? It would be, Randy Arozarena has been hot as of late. He hit a couple home runs a day against the Rangers. He's plus 370. I think that's a fair price on a home run for him. Robleski, as you said, the home runs aren't showing up, at least not against righties. He's only at 0.45, but he still allows a 41% fly ball rate versus righties and a 43% hard contact rate. So he's overperforming. His home run to fly ball ratio is 3.9% versus righties this season. And his career average, if I can find this quickly, his career average is still 8.4. So he's twice as good this year as he is compared to his career. That's a bit too much. Randy Rosarena has been hot.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, there's nothing. He's been fantastic, but I do think the home run regression is coming if we can get a team that can get it up there at Chez Ravine. So maybe not a bad look, but Rosarena, starting to swing it pretty well here in that one. And then, Louis, you just don't know what you're going to get from him. He's been better in Seattle, right, than he's been on the road. But, every time he's another guy, Tom, that every time I look to stick a fork in him, sometimes he goes out there and gives you these, these ridiculous efforts. Last time out, Cincinnati only gave up 3 earned. He went 7 innings, though, and threw 100 pitches. So, which version of him shows up here? Maybe a first 5 over?
Yeah, I would look to continuously fade Castillo. One of the things I've been going to a lot for him this season is hits allowed. And it was 4.5 against Cincinnati. I lost by the hook on that one last time out versus Cincinnati, but it's been cashing pretty regularly this season. And again, this is, instead of betting a minus 210 on the Dodgers, I always want to find an alternate route. And, whether it's pitchers and under on an outs prop and, over on earned runs, under on strikeouts, over on hits allowed, you can find better numbers and say, hey, the pitcher is going to be bad. I'm not betting on a money line. Let's find another way to do it.
Yeah, I don't mind that. But by the way, they have been terrible. Seattle has been against lefties here. Just not good at all over the last couple of weeks. Dodgers doing their thing as usual. So both bullpens are rested, though. That's the interesting part here. That's why I might want to look for runs early as maybe opposed to late in this one. But should be a fun one there. Dodgers in Seattle. That's your late night. Tom mentioned very interesting game here with the Padres at Colorado. Padres at home. We'll talk about that one. Michael King is on the mound there. Also, San Francisco. The Brewers are in Oracle again after getting shut out last night, getting blanked, which I did not have that on the bingo card. Logan Henderson and Landon Roop tonight, that's a huge pitcher's battle here. I think we got some interesting avenues to approach with that one, not to mention Houston and the Angels. So we got much more to get to here as Game Time Decisions getting you ready for the slate of action here tonight on the Grid. All right, welcome back in. Game time decisions here on the Sports Grid Network as we are off and running. Orioles and Tigers just underway, as are the Rangers and the Rays. We do have a delay with the Nationals and the Blue Jays here tonight. Bieber on the mound versus Savali there. That game is being pushed back to 8:30 tonight. Don't forget, Atlanta and the Mets was actually postponed already. Doubleheader likely coming up tomorrow. Still no score. Phillies and Marlins, Diamondbacks and Pirates underway. So we got a few games here in this just before the top of the hour, Tom, but some late games tonight. Intriguing to say the least. And we mentioned it. Padres coming off a very successful road trip. They've been playing. Finally, the bats are starting to get going. Michael King on the mound at home, taking on Lorenzen there for the Rockies. I mean, are we so convinced the Padres have figured it out that we're laying this kind of price with them?
That's a big price in any capacity. In any sport. Oof. You know, when we're dealing with a team that's like turning things around. Here's the question I want to know is like, are people betting on the Padres or are they betting against the Rockies? Because, you know, that's always the dynamic that we have when we're dealing with a team that is so negatively viewed as the Rockies are, especially given their recent history, that they are just woefully underperformed is obviously isn't even the word to put it. They're just so terrible. And Michael Lorenzen, it just isn't a good pitcher, but do we really trust the Padres at a $2 favorite? Yes, they're the better team. We know that. They've been hot as of late, but I still don't want to lay a $2.20 price on Michael King. I would look to lay the -1.5 and get plus 100 on it before I lay the money line.
I agreed. I mean, that's just now granted, you know, the bullpen certainly advantage there, but we have seen this Rockies team, especially out west, whether it's the Dodgers, they're feisty, right? I mean, when you least expect it, they're kind of feisty. Call me crazy. I think Lorenzen is just happy anytime he can pitch outside of Coors. He went and got paid, but I don't know what he was thinking. Going to Colorado to pitch there is a different ball game. But he has been better on the road, as almost every pitcher is for Colorado. Maybe a 1.5. Should we take the 1.5 with Colorado?
You want to take the 1.5 with Colorado? I'm not a believer in the Padres. I haven't been all season. Their offense, is terrible. And I know they turned things around as of late. Like they put together a good road trip. They swept the Marlins. They were really scoring runs against the Braves, even though they lost that series. I've never been a believer in the Padres this season. So if people want to fade them, I have no issue with that.
Yep. I would look to the under, too. Again, that is one of the most, offensive, oppressive fields in all. Petco is just horrific for hitters in a big, big way. So if you're expecting a whole big, wild shootout, I don't think you're getting it. I think you're going to get a bit of a pitcher's duel in that one there. You also have the Astros, who in epic fashion come from behind. I think they scored 3 or 4 runs in the 9th inning to come back and win that game against the Angels. What are we doing? It's actually a pretty decent pitcher's battle because Reed Detmers is on the mound for the Angels. Lambert, who, his numbers too are about, he's been pretty good, but, the numbers tell me maybe a little bit of regression coming, but we're back to the same thing. Are the Angels the ones that are going to make it come to fruition here? I like the pitcher's battle, and I certainly like Reed Detmers in this spot. What are you thinking?
Reed Detmers is that name for teams out there that are approaching the postseason that they want to potentially add to their roster. If it's not going to be Scooble, Reed Detmers is looking like the prize of the trade deadline. He's been great this year. Lambert has kind of been sneaky great. And Lambert, if you look at his career numbers, he pitched at Coors Field with the Rockies. He's put together a pretty darn good year for the Astros. I think he's undervalued or just not well known is a great way just to put it. He has some really good recent starts. I think he is due for regression because I don't think he's this good of a pitcher, but I also don't think the Angels are the lineup that are going to get that regression ball rolling. So seeing 6 innings, 2 earned runs, 6 innings, 1 earned run, 6 innings, 1 earned run, 5.2 no earned runs over his last 4 starts, I think you begin for much of the same, and a pitcher's duel with an under tonight wouldn't be the way to go.
It's going to be interesting there. I mean, that's another ballpark that you think would generate some runs, but it's not. It's unbelievable how bad it has been there. But I usually like Reed Detmers in the first 5. I like him to be able to suppress the bats. First 5 under, too, would not shock me here, as the Angels don't feel like they've been able to hit anything from anybody in a while. Underhand, overhand, lefty, righty. Doesn't feel like the Angels are a team that I can trust. And I think Detmers can absolutely limit what Houston is doing. And you and I talked about it before. I mean, Houston, all of a sudden, don't pay attention now, Tom, but what are they? 2.5 games out of that final wild card spot? They're finally healthy. What do we do?
The Astros are a better team. There's no doubt about it. And there's a pretty fair price on their money line. We're going to coin flip essentially on both sides, minus 110, minus 106. I think the Astros can rattle off some wins. I think Reed Detmers is great. You could bet them now. It's minus 110. I think that's fine. I think the Astros will pile up some wins. And I still think Reed Detmers can go out there and have a great start. He can go out there and strike out 5 or 6 and do his thing and, up a stock that much more right before the deadline next week, because this is his last start for the team. Today's Tuesday. I don't think he'll start Sunday. They may want to protect him just, before the deadlines, but it's possible this is his last outing before he's traded.
Houston to make the playoffs, yes or no?
No. They're just not a well-rounded enough team. They're hot right now, but I don't think they're well-rounded enough ultimately.
Man, they need Hunter Brown to get back to form in a big way, which I think he's on his way, but they're going to need that top end here. Looks like the bullpen has finally figured it back out, but I'm with you. They just inconsistent, to say the least, there with Houston. But again, only 2 games out of that final wild card spot. A lot of baseball still to be played here, and anything is possible. Interesting one with the Brewers and the Giants coming up here tonight. We'll talk about that one. We'll get you updated with what's going on already. Plenty of Major League Baseball underway. We've got you covered here as Game Time Decisions continues here on the Grid. All right, welcome back in as we look to close out this edition of Game Time Decisions together. Joe Raineri alongside Tom Vecchio. Have no fear. In-game live, Kevin Walsh, Gabe Morency coming your way here just after the top of the hour. But we got one more game I want to get your thoughts on here, Tom, before we run down the scoreboard. And I think this is a fascinating one because I did not see the Brewers getting shut out last night, but that's exactly what happened. 3-0. The 3-0 doesn't shock me because it is Oracle, and we laugh about these. Well, it's 16 miles an hour blowing out the right. It's always blowing out at right field at Oracle, and it's still a terrible ballpark for hitters. But this has got great pitching matchup written all over it. Landon Root versus Logan Henderson. Nobody strikes out more than the Giants, and Henderson strikes everybody out. And Landon Root has been fantastic at home, and he's on a pretty good stretch here. So, given everything, are we getting 8 runs here? Because I don't think we will.
I don't think we will either. We're looking at a lower scoring game. At least what I'm seeing right now, as everyone can assume, we're seeing a lot of Brewers action, a lot of Brewers money in this one, just because people are expecting the Brewers to bounce back after yesterday and not lose 2 in a row to the the lowly Giants. But 7.5, there's no way. And listen, if it goes over, I think it's solely Brewers. They win this game 7-1, and that's what caused the game to go over, just because the Giants are a bit of a mess. But I don't see this as a high-scoring game. 4-1 final, 3-1 final. That's what we could be looking at. Not just a first 5 under. You could be looking at first 5 and full game under.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, I don't think any of the leverage arms pitched last night for Milwaukee or for the Giants. So I think both bullpens are good to go. I don't think Landon Root gets enough credit for what he's been able to do so far. I think he's having a great season. He's a ground ball pitcher in a ballpark that you're not getting a lot of power. And listen, the Brewers ain't hitting a lot of home runs anyway. But, it feels like team totals, full game under, first 5. Feels like another one of these 3-1, maybe 4-2 kind of games coming our way here tonight. But I like Roop. I think he's a guy the market kind of sleeps on a little bit.
And I've been saying this about the Brewers for a while. Like, the bottom portion of their lineup isn't good enough to compete in the NL. Like, they have a good team, but that's not a team that's built to beat the Dodgers. So you can scratch and claw your way to win games in the regular season. And with the back end of the bullpen that's as good as theirs, they can lock down a lot of games and no one can score against them. But the offense is still lacking from Milwaukee, and I don't think it's going to show tonight.
I don't either. I think that's a good over there. In fact, that'll be my best bet of the show here, Tom. Do you have a game that you like a little bit more than the rest here tonight?
I think it's the Red Sox. I think they continue to roll. I think you look to a team total there with the Red Sox, certainly like that. As I said, I'm very high on Wilson Contreras today for 2+ total bases. Getting that at -115. He just is an elite hitter versus lefties. He has a high ISO. He doesn't strike out. Gauge jump is struggling in a big way, especially at home. And listen, even if he doesn't get it across the board against jump, you give me extra at bats versus the Athletics bullpen. And I'll take that for a hitter that doesn't strike out, has high power. You give me a single or a double in the gap, 2 singles, I should say, and a double in the gap, we get the 2+ total bases.
Yeah, I agree. And the more we talked about a couple of other games here, the more split it in half. I think Lambert versus Detmers under 4.5. And call me crazy. I think Bieber is being undervalued in the market. I think that's a sneaky pitcher's battle in a weather-delayed game, right, Tom, with Washington and Toronto? I'm getting 4.5 as a total in the first 5, plus money to the under. And I think Tampa is a better lineup than Washington, and Bieber had no problem limiting them for 7 innings to a run. I think this has got Cavalli, but I think it's a good pitcher's battle early on in that game.
Yeah, today's slate has some really nice pitching matchups, and that's one of the better ones because Bieber, people I think look back to, who he was in previous years and see that he struggled at the end. But he's bounced back in a nice way over these last few starts. And listen, if he can do it against Tampa, he should be able to do it against the Nats as well.
I agree. By the way, Mets, in fact, doubleheader tomorrow. That game postponed tonight, so we'll get another doubleheader there. Brandon Pfaadt versus Bubba Chandler. Arizona's up 1-0 already. Miami on the board 1-0 early there. Texas and Tampa, no score, top of the second. And Baltimore, Detroit, no score, bottom of the first. So we got some Nerfies and Yerfies going off already here, Tom. You and I will get to do it again tomorrow. Get folks ready for a little more game time decisions, but don't go anywhere. In-game live game day. Kevin Walsh, Gabe Morency coming your way here. We'll see you again tomorrow on the grid.
In-game live on Sports.